So for those of you that have joined, welcome to the Dariro Discourse on the queer Black experience. Just some quick housekeeping for our attendees. At the bottom of your Zoom window, you should get some options and you should see the chat and Q&A. Please use either one for any questions that you have throughout the discussion. The panelists will be able to see what you're typing and will answer questions as they come up. So it's either the Q&A or the chat feature to ask any questions while you're listening. Also, just to let everyone know that this Zoom is being recorded as well. I'll pass over to Kanzai, I think. Are you ready?
Yeah, just give me a second, guys. I'm just joining with my laptop, having some. It's a slow laptop day. I just need to join in with my laptop. Right, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Yeah? Sorry. I would like to thank everyone once again for joining us on our second panel discussion. We're really, really excited for this discussion, and for everyone who's joined, thank you so much for continuing to support what we're trying to do over here at Wedzera. By being here, once again, you are proving that to you, the struggle with everything that's going on with Black Lives Matter still means something to you. You're still trying to learn, you're still trying to listen, you're still trying to educate yourself. So thank you so much for continuing to support what it is that we're trying to do. We are very, very excited for this panel, the queer Black experience. For me personally, I know that we started this to bring visibility to a lot of the things that are happening in the Black community. And as a queer Black person myself, this panel means a lot to me. And I thank the 5 panelists who are joining us today for being here, because you are giving voice to a conversation that really needs to be had. And I think the best way to sum it up is, I will paraphrase Rico by saying that being queer and Black really is to be a minority within a minority that will continue to disrespect and disregard your existence in the exact same way that their existence is disregarded and disrespected. So this is a very special place, and this conversation is going to be very, very eye-opening. It's going to be cathartic for a lot of us, and I really, really am looking forward to it. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for myself and the team, and I'll pass over to Melly, who will be our host for the evening.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. So we're just going to get straight into it, really. Start with the question: have you ever felt like you're being made the representative for all queer Black people? So by that we mean in your workplace or in your group of friends. Should we start with Ola, if you want to start the conversation?
I knew you were going to start with me. I just need. Do I feel like I'm carrying 2 flags? Yes. Does my shoulders hurt from carrying the 2 flags? Yes. I guess where I come from with it is that I think, especially when I take it back to work, especially, is that I am a minority, I'm Black, and then I tick another box that I'm also queer. So I think for me, I always feel like I have to, if Black History Month comes along, I have to make sure that I'm vocal, and I'm there, and I'm making sure that everyone else is educating themselves, and I'm teaching people about the history. I'm doing all this stuff around educating about my Blackness. But then when it comes to Pride Month, I'm also there having to educate around pride and being gay and where it all comes from. But then I also have to fight for the fact that they forget that pride came from Black people. And that history completely gets lost. So you have to then educate the gays about Black, and you do feel like constantly all you're doing is like educating people about everything. because actually that, and it always comes back to being black, and I think that always gets forgotten in the gay community, especially. So yeah, I do definitely feel like my shoulders are heavy, and yeah, I do feel like I'm flying two flags. But I'm, do you know what? I've got used to it. I'm also quite used to it now, and I realise that's my what's the thing with this? What's the saying? It's like, it's my cross to bear. That's what my mum would say, my cross to bear, and I'm happy to bear it for now, because I think that there's a need for us to continue educating, and to continue flying those flags so that people know what's going on in the world of blackness and also in the world of the LGBTQ plus community.
Definitely. Corey, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you. That was a really good answer, Ola, by the way. For me, it's a little bit different because I guess the way I carry my queerness is not, I don't want to say I hide it. I'm definitely not ashamed of who I am, but I don't think I project it as much. And I mentioned it to all the panelists when we spoke earlier, but I have a mindset in that I don't want to come out because I don't think straight people have to come out, so why should I? So then when I'm in spaces like in work or at school and it's conversations around being Black, I'm loud and proud and I'm always there. And then when there's conversations about being queer, I'm always there as well and having those conversations and expressing what my thoughts are and trying to support for the queer initiative. But I don't always put the fact that I'm queer on it. And I feel like very guilty about it, to be quite honest. So doing events like this is part of me trying to push myself to be more vocal about my queerness and my involvement in the community. But yeah, it does weigh on me personally when I do see or I'm in an environment where people are saying things that I don't agree with or they're being homophobic, and I kind of feel like, is it my place to say something? Do I speak up? Do I not? I was working in a firm. It was my first job. I studied architecture, by the way. So I was working in an architecture firm, and it's a predominantly white male career scope. So I was in this office and there was, the owner of the firm was white and male, and one of his colleagues was white and male, and it was Pride Month back in Bermuda where I live, or where I'm from. I'm living in Coventry. But I was home and I was there, and we were trying, the office visually wanted to show that they're supporting the LGBT community. So we had made a big banner to put outside the office window because we're in a tall office building so people could see it from the street. There was going to be a parade that was going to walk across the building. So we wanted to show that our floor, our level was supporting. But there was this very weird and very homophobic energy in the office where the owner and, you know, some of the colleagues were not being very supportive of it, even though they were obviously working for the company and our name was associated with being in support of LGBTQ rights. They were still acting a bit, undertone comments and kind of just like, I don't really want to be a part of it. And I felt really uncomfortable and I didn't really know how to speak up about it because it was my first job. I'm trying to impress everybody there. I'm only young. I'm probably the youngest person in the office. And I'm like one other Black person in the office. So I felt very alone and I didn't really know how to navigate myself in that space. So, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person who's ever experienced that type of scenario, but it is a difficult issue being Black and being gay, already feeling kind of overcome with, carrying that banner of I'm Black and I'm proud and I want to speak for my cause. And then also the queerness aspect of it. And especially back home in Bermuda, being Black is fine. Everyone's okay with that. We're all there for you. Half of the population is Black. Being queer, on the other hand, is not as accepted. It's only now starting to get more and more accepted. We had accepted gay marriage and then we turned around and changed our mind and then we accepted it again. So there's a lot of back and forth in the island and it's a lot of old people making decisions like in most political climates. But it's a very, very religious country. And yeah, it's still a fight I'm fighting, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I can relate to quite a lot of that actually. I went to school and I was one of the very few Black people in my school. I went to dance school for university and there were 4 other Black and mixed race people in my year. So that's out of about 100 people. There was 4 of us who were Black, and it's not fun. But again, it's one of those things that you get used to. You kind of like just come to accept it. But I guess now, especially over the summer, I've kind of and now I'm a bit like, no, this isn't the status quo. I'm not allowing this to continue anymore. I'm gonna speak up. I'm gonna say what I feel needs to be said. So yeah.
And to back up what you're saying, I definitely agree with that, because since I've moved from Bermuda, started my education in the UK, I felt more free. I felt like I can express myself. And now I feel more confident going back home to be like, no, I'm queer. I'm not going to let you say what you want. I'm going to speak up for how I feel. So I think it comes to a point with everyone where they kind of get really confident in who they are. And then they, feel that power, that fire in their belly to be like, I'm not going to sit and let you do or say whatever you want to say. And then for me as well, when I was growing up in Bermuda, even though majority of the population was Black, I went to a private school, so it was predominantly white. So even though in the country I was part of the majority as Black, in my social circles, 9 times out of 10, I was one of the few Black people. So it was also hard to navigate, how do I fit in with the white girls because I'm Black, but then when I'm not at school, how do I fit in with the Black girls because I feel white, because I've been socially trying to, attribute myself to that group of people, and then always feeling weird and like, it's an interesting journey. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm kind of realizing like, what was I going through?
Do you feel as comfortable owning your queer identity within the Black community, so within Black heterosexuals? So for me personally, I don't surround myself with too many Black people that aren't queer, because I struggle with their homophobia. And I struggle with owning my queerness as much as I do with around, let's say, white people or other races. I do struggle a lot with the Black community, because I don't know if anyone else has the same sort of, not issue, but like problem that I do. And how do you deal with it, I guess?
Avner, you look like you have something to...
Yeah, there's so many things that come up with this one.
To add to what Ola just said as well, with that, does the family thing play into it for a lot of us? Like he's saying, with other Black people owning our queerness, does it stem from a family thing for a lot of us? Is that what we're saying?
Is that what we're saying? How do you mean?
As in us struggling to own our queerness in the Black community, does it stem from feeling a lack of support at home, and then that spreads into your kind of views of the wider Black community? I think
100%. It all starts from home, isn't it? What they always say, like, it all starts at home. If you haven't got the love at home that you expect to have from your family, then when you go outside and you see other people like your family, you're going to expect them to show you the same disrespect and the same unloving nature that your family show you. So I guess it all works hand in hand, for me anyway. That definitely stems from that, definitely.
Yeah. I think there's so many things that come up with this one. It's navigating my sexuality anyway, but I find that I feel like there's toxic masculinity, and then there's another type of Black toxic masculinity with cis het men. And so I feel that if I'm like approaching dating, like there was this certain situation recently where if I'm talking to a guy and he's Black and with Black masculinity, I don't know that I feel safe. And so I think I approach a lot of situations, like when you were talking about work, I approach certain situations and certain friendships that when I test the waters, because I've been in situations where I just feel unsafe. And I think that was when I was not as comfortable with my sexuality. And so I was very, very fragile in how I felt about myself and how I felt about my sexuality. But I am public with, my identity and being queer and Black on social media. But when it comes to certain situations where I'm not sure if it's safe, I play it by ear. Because again, like you're saying, like it took me ages, for example, when I was first coming out to my best friend who's Black. And that's because I'd had such toxic experiences with family, unlearning that homophobia. So going out into the world, I didn't really have a lot of trust within the Black community, which is a really sad thing to admit, but it's definitely true. Yeah, it's with dating, it's with friendships, it's ingrained everywhere. And I think there are definitely a lot of liberal Black people who are cis, who are het, but in certain corners, in certain situations, you do need to protect yourself. So it's learning to find that balance between being vocal, which I am publicly, but in certain situations, just making sure you protect yourself, because some battles you need to pick, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, to add to what you're saying, not everyone deserves your vulnerability. So as much as you want to be vocal and you want to share who you are personally and share your story, one thing I taught myself is, even though because at first I felt guilty because I wasn't being loud about how I'm queer and my queerness, but then I realized that, one, my queerness doesn't make up my whole personality, so it's not necessary for me to constantly tell everyone about it. And two, not everyone deserves to know, because not everyone's on that level with me where they need to know. If you're only some person I'm going to see once a week, or you're some person I work with and I casually speak to, I don't necessarily have to tell you that I'm queer. If you are going to act homophobic, I will make you aware that I will feel personally offended if you're going to say certain things. But if nothing's going to happen for me to be triggered, and if we're not going to have a deep relationship, I don't think we need to have that conversation, because I'm not asking you who you're going to go home with at the end of the day. So there's no reason for me to express it on my end. But back to the conversation about if it's parents and being in the Black community, I'm really sorry for everyone's experience, but I actually didn't have that. For me, I think I overthink a lot of stuff, and I don't know, I think I was taking on points that I was seeing, because I was doing my research. I was trying to understand what it meant to be Black and gay or queer. And I was seeing a lot of horror stories. So I was creating an image in my mind of what was going to happen when I told my friends and my family. And the reality of it was completely different. Everyone was fine. No one really cared. 9 times out of 10 people were like, yeah, we knew that already. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, but then obviously there's still those few people who, kind of don't talk to me as much as they used to, and, would say one thing in one conversation and now they're saying something else in a different conversation. But time, people will leave your life who you don't need, and the people who were meant to be there will stay. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, linking it back to family, do any of you have like a fear of extended family? Because I know for myself, like, coming from Zimbabwe, born and raised there, and having the majority of my family very open about my sexuality and kind of very vocal, but I always wonder, if I were to go back, would I have the same energy, the same pride in who I am? Like, I always used to think, if I ever married a woman, would I be able to tell my grandparents that that's how I live? So does anyone else have that with the extended family, where you're kind of fine with your kind of family that live with you, but then you think further to your extended family? Does anyone else get that fear of, would I still be proud and claim who I am?
Rico, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so sorry, I've been like struggling, but when it comes to sort of move back a bit, when it comes to the work situation, like I used to work in finance and trading floors, and I was like one of the first Black people there, and I also happened to be kind of gay, but like gender dysphoric gay, because I'm a trans guy. So I was like, had like hairy legs, and people would look at my legs in the meeting and be like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "It's gender dysphoria." Yeah, they just weren't used to it. They weren't accustomed to it. And I ended up getting goody for it. I got PTSD, and I just recovered from it. So I had to like relearn how to read and write because of homophobia on trading floor. And there's lots of people like me who kind of had that experience. Having said that, I do a lot of work with like the older generation Black community. I have a racism show right now, and I'm openly trans on that show. And I will be like, "Oh yeah, my pronouns are he, him, I'm a trans guy." And I kind of open with it just to kind of see what happens. And I've actually been pleasantly surprised. I've had so many people. I had one of the older Black generation actually invite me to speak to some Black youths to talk about LGBT rights. So, I mean, yes, my family's slightly homophobic and transphobic, and my actual cousins are all Christian, like Seventh-day Adventist Christian. So I don't really get the hatred. I get the it's not up to me to judge, which is self-righteous and irritating. But at least they still talk to me. But yeah, I do. When I came out as gay, I expected to lose friends. When I came out as trans, 100% I expected to lose family. And you can't just, you accept it and then hope that the ones that are good enough will stay. But I won't be going to a family gathering anytime soon, and that's in London. That's not even in like back in Africa and homeland. That's literally in London. Like there's certain spaces which I just wouldn't go because it would just be a bit too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I would probably, I'm quite similar in a way that I'm really lucky that my mum and dad they're great, and my brothers they're okay. They still love me, but they are quite homophobic in a way. And I've got two amazing cousins who are like my sisters who are also amazing. But I've always wanted to go back to Nigeria. And I know that it's a conversation that's never happened with any of my family in Nigeria to tell them that I am gay. So first of all, if I wanted to go there, I'd have to come out. And second of all, my mum and dad have always said that if I go to Nigeria and I'm gay, then I'll be killed. So I've kind of I've always wanted to go back, but I've never thought in my head that that'll ever be a thing that I'm able to even do, because I don't know, first of all, how that conversation would go down with my family in Nigeria, and if I'd be safe. I think I would be safe, because I think my parents blow it out of proportion, because I think actually there is quite a good gay community in Nigeria. But it's just the awkward conversations with family, because my mum has lied for quite a long time, I think, to her siblings, and my dad has also lied to his siblings, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, he's gonna get married one day to a woman. You know what it's like, these young kids, da da da. Even though he knows pretty well that that's never gonna happen. So yeah, I think yeah, I find it's like you live your life here in this country, and your family over there kind of have a different idea. It even got to a point where my mum told me to block some of my family on Instagram so they wouldn't see me out and about or doing anything gay. So yeah, it's bizarre, but it's a weird. For me, it's I do it for my mum and dad to make sure that they're kind of happy, because they've accepted this whole new, I guess, this new journey of mine, and I have to respect their boundaries in a way. And I wasn't that close to my family in Nigeria anyway, so I mean, it's no skin off my nose really, but it's just a bit annoying because you feel like you're kind of disconnected.
I refused to do it. I got told to disconnect from family, like mutual friends from school. Oh, do you have to have your sister's friends? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I know them, and they added me. So I'm not going to pretend or hide who I am. We can pretend and act like this is a bubble of safety where you can think that gay people and trans people don't exist in the house. That's fine. I'm not going to like push you there. But outside in the real world, I am who I am, and I'm outspoken. So, and I go by an entirely different name on social media. So Chase isn't actually my surname. I completely changed my name because my family kept saying to me that, oh, you're tarnishing the family name. I'm like, no, I'm not. It's my own name. I created my own identity. And I'm entirely evolved from you. So you can have your own world and I can do mine. So, yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the family thing that Kudza was talking about, my family was very fine, absolutely fine. I also had a similar thing with Corey, where it's like, I'm not really gonna make a point of being like, hi, I'm queer, cool. It's just a thing. So like, I just might walk through the door with a man, and then like it is what it is. And into going back to the extended family thing, like my family's from the Caribbean, which is obviously quite a very homophobic place in the world. But like a lot of my family, I've visited the Caribbean all throughout my life, so I've been back and forth, and so I know I'm quite close with that side of my family as well, and they do know. And even if it bothered them, I'm at the point now where like I really would not care, because I'm here to live my life. I'm not here to live your life. I'm here to live mine. So if you don't like me, that's you, because I'm a great person and you missed out. Do you know what I mean? So that's what that is. That's how I feel about that with the family situation. Yeah. Does anybody else have? Sorry, I was actually going to. We had a question from one of the participants, and they were just saying, do you think that gender actually, in terms of coming out with your family, the conversation, do you think gender plays into it? Because they are saying that they're from South Asian culture, and being female is a lot more unheard of than being male. So does anybody have anything to say about that?
I do. I was racing to unmute myself because I wanted to say it. My close friend, she's from Hong Kong, and she is bisexual. I'm not going to speak for her, obviously, because she's not here. But I definitely do think that gender does affect your confidence in coming out. I think it's more likely you'll see men be accepted. I don't know, accepted. I'm not a man. I can't express how it feels like to be gay. But from my point of view, it looks as though it's easier for people to acknowledge that a man is gay. When it comes to a woman, it's like, are you sure? I either get, oh, you just like girls. Like you're gonna marry a man, but you're just like playing. You're just gonna mess around and like girls. Or, oh, you haven't met the right guy yet. So you don't really know what you're talking about right now. But if it's a guy, from what I've seen, it's just like, okay, yeah, he's gay. I'm just gonna ignore him and let him do that. And then it's either probably a bunch of hate, but it's still accepting the fact that they're gay. From us, I feel like you get denied, your sexuality is denied. I don't know what it is like to be Asian, because obviously I'm not Asian, but from what my friend has told me, she yeah, it's hard for her. She's a special person in her own right. She kind of just lives her life in freedom and does whatever she feels like. But yeah, she even said to me, like, her parents they know she's different, but they don't really know her sexuality properly. She hasn't blatantly come out and said this is what it means. And yeah, she's the only person I know from Asia who is of any other queer identity. So yeah, I think that's a very valid point.
Does anybody else have anything to say?
Yeah, I guess on the family topic, I kind of spoke to the panelists earlier, but I recently came out to my parents, and the reaction, I think going into it, I was confident in who I was. You know, I've done a lot of work on myself over these past few years, and you know, on learning our ancestry, on Black queer African ancestry, and knowing, you know, finding out that, you know, finding the proof that we were there, and just working on myself, finding a chosen family and all of that. And so I think I went in kind of just saying, this is the last thing I just need to get off my chest, because I'm quite vocal in other ways. And the reaction was very homophobic and very like, oh my goodness, how unfortunate, and it wasn't great. And I think I was very much like, you know, it kind of went over my head, and I was like, I'm fine. But I think after, it's like a complex thing, based on what you're saying and everything. It's a complex thing, because it's one thing to be confident in yourself and have chosen family, but it's another thing to not have that acceptance from your family. Even though I kind of affirm that it's okay, it does start to affect you a little bit. So it's like finding that balance between affirming yourself and knowing that you have that chosen family, but then also feeling that pain from not being accepted from your family. And I think the thing is, I do have that support from my sisters, which is amazing. But I think, I don't know, it's a tricky one, because I'm not really close to my extended family like that. I've only been to Ghana twice. It's been 12 years since I've been to Ghana. But when I do see my like one of the things that my mom said when I came out was, I don't think we're going to be able to tell grandma, like, oh, you know, this is like, I grew up Roman Catholic. What is this? This is very unfortunate for me. And so even though I'm not close to my extended family like that, and I haven't seen them in ages, it's a struggle, because I think throughout my life I've felt very disconnected from my culture, and I've always wanted to connect in that way. And I think obviously with Black Lives Matter and the resurgence recently, that was one of the things I was thinking about. Like, you know, it just feels like the struggle for Black people is just way too much. And, you know, in Britain and in America, maybe the right step is just to like think about going back home. But then throughout that whole process of thinking that, I was like, but will I be able to be myself? Will I be able to be my full self? My parents have made it clear, and I've known this from the beginning, that they, you know, wouldn't be proud to tell my grandma. Like, my mom was like, you know, grandma wants you to have grandchildren. And I was like, that's not going to stop it anyway. But it's just things like that, you know? It's a weird balance between wanting to feel proud of your heritage and being proud of your heritage and wanting to connect to your roots back home, but also knowing that you can never really find a place there. So you're always stuck in this in-between of like, where do I fit? But also I know where I fit at the same time, but it's just like this constant displacement. And I think diasporans feel that a lot, just culturally, of feeling like where do I fit and where is like my real sense of home. But I think there's another layer added to it when you're queer, because it's like, I don't know where to fit, I'm disconnected, and then you don't accept me most likely. So it's just, it's a difficult one. Again, I feel one thing that kept me going throughout the whole time when they were saying all these things, and I know eventually they'll come around, I understand that, but one thing that kept me going is when they were like, you know, there's nothing like that in Ghana. And I was like, my love, there is. I've seen proof. You know, I've seen the proof. It does exist. Queerness, gender fluidity, like, you know, freedom and sexuality was everywhere. And it was colonialism that stripped that back. And so I think that's something that affirms me, is just doing my research, you know, remembering that I have people that accept me and giving them time. And if not, like you were saying, Melly, yeah, you're lost, you know? Yeah.
So kind of like, sorry, could I go on?
I was just going to say, I think sometimes it's on the journey, it can be really sad, because there has to come a point, and this is where I kind of reached a few years ago, where you just kind of have to decide that you don't care what your family thinks about you, in a way that you say, if they don't talk to me, they don't talk to me. But it's really sad. I remember coming to that realization where I said, well, if my grandparents don't want to know me, then that's on them. But it's really sad that you kind of just have to mentally cut off a lot of people that might not accept who you are, just because of this thing that you can't change. Like, that was kind of the hardest thing for me to sit with for a long time, was that having to kind of say to yourself and teach yourself that certain family members aren't important, maybe, if they don't accept it. And it still stings, even if you do have that confidence and you do say, you know, I don't care if they don't accept me. It does sting knowing that you could potentially be turned away because of something that you can't change.
I think as well, when you come out, like you have this idea in your head when you're about to come out, that actually you're at this point where I'm coming out and I potentially could lose everybody. Like, it's not just your family, it's your friends. It's, do you know what I mean? It's you on your own. And like for me, when I was about to come out, I was very lucky that I had one friend I confided in, and she was like, I don't care. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be on my own. I've got one person. But in my head, I still had this idea that potentially I could be on my own without a family, without any friends. And luckily, I think this is to answer Stella's question. My friends all dealt with it really well, because they were like, babe, we knew. We knew. It just took you a while to find yourself, but we're glad you got there. But we knew. So yeah, I was really lucky and really blessed to have friends that were really like welcoming and really open, and like they've been on a journey with me as well. Like as I've been discovering myself and finding who I am, where I sit, they've been on that journey as well, and like they're always supportive. I know that not everyone's lucky to have that, and I'm really blessed with that. But I think it's strange that, I think it's also weird, and probably this is why you haven't done it, Corey, because you know you don't have to come out, so you don't have to have the idea. I want to live in a world where you don't have to come out. Like, why is that even a thing? Like, why do we have to come out? It's fucking bizarre. Sorry for swearing. It's bizarre that straight people can live their lives, have sex with whoever they want to have sex with, and don't have to say what they're doing. And gay people, queer people have to identify as gay, bi, lesbian, trans. Like, why do we have to have so many bloody labels all the time? And I'm just like, is it because we've set this bar for ourselves, or is it something that we can change over time?
Sorry. So like, kind of off of that, do you think that in terms of trying to make the change, do you think that if you were to have children, you would then raise them differently? Rico, you want to speak?
My girlfriend has a toddler, so I'm like super excited for daddy duty, not gonna lie. Yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and I wasn't quite sure, because I was bricking out. I was just like, oh my God, how am I going to explain it to them? Like, I just hope that my beard's growing by then, so I have to explain it. And they're like, it's cool, stop freaking out. And they're genuinely like, how do I explain this? And I have friends that are raising their kids as like gender neutral, so they don't really assign a gender to either. But I'm quite traditionalist, so I kind of feel like it's better for the kid to know what society kind of expects, and then when they're old enough to understand that they're making a conscious decision to rebel or like go against the system, then kind of let them do it that way. But I don't know, you kind of just let the kid pick her clothes. So she just like walks into the store and just points that, and we're like, okay, it's just that. And she does tend to wear slightly more boys' clothes, but if we're going to like a restaurant or something, then it's best that the kid kind of wears girly clothes. I don't know. It's difficult. And yeah, I think I would probably explain gender slightly earlier on to them, as the same way they're doing in schools now. Sexuality I'll probably explain around about the same time as the whole sex talk, but I think you want to be the change. So obviously I won't be raising my kid to be homophobic, but I think I probably still kind of keep some of the rules, like say for example, if you're with a guy, if you're with a male, don't sit on the guy's lap, because if you sit on the guy's lap, that's near the genital area. Like there's some rules in society that kind of just need to stay there. So I'll probably still adopt some of the old stuff, but bring in some of the new. So we'll see.
Sorry,
Yeah,
did you want to
I
speak?
agree. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I agree with Rico 100%. It actually reminds me of how my parents raised me. Shout out to my parents. They kind of raised me in two minds. So when I was younger, we were in church. I went to a youth group, and in a weird way, they kind of tried to instill with me and my sister the traditional way of life. This is what society wants. And then when we got to a kind of age where we could kind of identify ourselves as people in the sphere of reality, they were like, okay, so now you're your own person. Let us explain to you that there are other options. This is what society wants you to do, but you can also know that these things are okay as well. So simple things like, these toys don't mean they're meant for this gender, or this color isn't meant for this gender. If you see that man and that man kissing, it's okay. They're happy. They're in love. That's them. That sort of idea. And then, I understand what you're saying about certain social cues about going to a restaurant as a girl and wearing girly clothes or not sitting on a boy's lap. They weren't that straight and cut about it, but they were kind of just like, just know that if you make XYZ decision, this is the possible repercussions from society based off of whatever they're thinking. And they basically were like, you can choose how you want to live your life, but we want to make sure you're aware of how to maneuver yourself in the masses, because we don't want to see you get hurt because you weren't informed. But we also want you to question a lot of stuff, and we want you to move knowing that you can decide how you want to present yourself, you can decide who you want to be with, and you can decide who you want to listen to. So yeah, basically everything Rico said.
Well, I think it's really difficult to. Oh, sorry, Binal. I've just jumped in. I think it's really difficult though in this society that we live in now to be able to raise kids. I mean, I would love to raise my child as being as fluid as they want to be, not seeing color, not seeing sexuality, just being you and live your life how you want to live your life. Unfortunately, we live in a society where you can't bring up kids to be that naive, because they will be faced with, like, for instance, I raised a child, and if my child's black, telling them that not to see colour is stupid because you're black and you will face racism. Like, there'll be racists out there. So you need to be able to identify when those things happen to you. It's like not raising a girl to be a girl. They're going to face discrimination and inequalities because they're female. So, like, there's things that the society's built, the construct of society, the way it's been built up, that there's no way you can raise children to not see these things or not to identify as these things, unfortunately. I think, anyway, personally.
I completely hear what you guys are saying. However, I think I wouldn't wait till so late in their life to say you can decide. I think I'd ingrain it from the beginning. So I'd let the choice be there from the beginning, because I think when children are very young, they are very influential at that age. And so the values that you give them will stay from the time that you give it to them. And it's better to do that earlier rather than later. So I think I wouldn't necessarily raise them as neutral. I'd give them the choice of just tell them throughout life, because I was working in a school recently. I was working as a teaching assistant, and we have a lot of races and ethnicities and religions in the school. and one of the kids was reading this book, and it was like two princes, the prince and the knight. And she came from a Muslim family, you know, with religion and everything that comes into play. She came from a Muslim family, you know, a little girl about age 7, and was just having a conversation to me about how wonderful it was. And we were just so excited about the book. And I think it's, you know, racism, homophobia, transphobia, all of it is taught. And so if you can get in there sooner rather than later, then, because I think one thing I know as well is that for a lot of people in society, you know, gender norms and how rigid they are can be very damaging to people who are variant from that and have to realize and unlearn that later in life. And so if you give them that option, then they're going to be more comfortable in themselves to feel like this is an option, whilst knowing how people are going to react to them. So I think it's in the same way where, you know, you can't raise your child to not know that they are Black. But by telling them both the gender, by telling them both the society, how society will react to them, but also instilling confidence in them and, you know, assurance in them, is gonna affect how they navigate the world and how they feel about themselves. I think sooner rather than later, basically. Yeah.
I'd just like to say, I think, and this is probably like super idealistic and, you know, the hippy dippy dreamy weemy, but like for me, it's always been, when it comes to kids, the thing we should be aiming for is for them not to even have to, like I've always said, if I had like a niece or a nephew and I don't want to have kids, but if I had like a niece or a nephew, they wouldn't even have to mention it. It needs to get to a point where it's not even a thing. Like you see them with, they're 15 and you see them, they identify as male and you see them with another, it's not even a thing that they feel that they have to express. It's literally just, you see it and you're just like, oh, your boy, like, you know, the same way that we encourage at young ages when you ask kids, you're like, oh, have you got a girlfriend yet, to little boys, or oh, have you got a boy? It needs to just be the same thing where you, like, it's not even an imposed thing where they feel like they have to, like you said earlier, Olajide, where they feel like they have to coming out needs to be erased. Like, just the feeling of it being something other than normal is what needs to be erased, in my opinion. Because when you start having those conversations and you start saying, you know, kids have to learn these things and they have to, it just needs to get to a place where, like, just like straight people, where you just grow up seeing yourself as normal. There are no other images countering that, and you just grow up accepting and knowing that. And I know it's super idealistic and like not realistic, but to me that's always been like the end goal that we need to be reaching for queer people to have the same privilege that straight people have, in that it's never questioned, it never raises eyebrows, it just is.
Yeah, I really want, because at school, I remember this so vividly, at school, constantly being asked, oh, have you got a girlfriend? Have you got a girlfriend? And I feel like that little voice followed me around for a long, long time, because you feel like that if you don't answer back saying, yes, I've got a girlfriend, then you're not normal. And because everyone at school had girlfriends or girls had boyfriends, it was just like, if you didn't have that, then you weren't like normal. So I feel like actually it needs to start from, just like, again, back to society, and also like teachers learning that those kind of questions shouldn't be asked in and around the school, and like the language needs to change from the way that people have been educated in school. It's like sex ed, you really only talk, like, I don't even know if they do sex ed anymore at school. Is that even a thing? I don't know. But in sex ed, I feel like they only tell you about having sex with a female and a male. They don't talk about the ins and outs of the rest of it. I don't know if they still do sex ed. I'm too old, so I have no idea. But I feel like that's, again, like teaching from that young age about the ins and outs of all sexualities, so that then when you grow up, it's like it just doesn't really become a conversation. It's just like you just do whatever you want. If you get what I'm trying to say, anyway.
Sorry, that was my bad. So we just kind of a little bit of a deviation. So like in terms of having society accept us all, where would you want to start that? So would that be, I know you've already said you've like with the education in terms of teaching, do you think that maybe the family how do I word this? Do you think that like it should be the family's obligation to do this, or do you feel like it's just I don't know how am I trying to word this?
I would say that it needs to start with all of us. Like all of us need to make a change. Like I feel like each one of us needs to check ourselves, correct ourselves in the language that we use on a day-to-day basis. Because I know that I sometimes say the wrong things and call people the wrong things and, you know, misgender people all the time. And like I feel like we all need to make a conscious effort to unlearn some of the bad habits and learn some new habits. I also feel like this, like TV plays such a huge part in the way that the country is obviously and the way that we all think. So, for example, if anybody watches EastEnders, like the likes of EastEnders, they'll have like one gay couple, and it'll be like a thing for it to be like, oh my god, EastEnders have got a gay couple. Like, and then it's like, well, why does that need to be a thing? Why does that need to be celebrated that you've got a gay couple? Or that, and they did for Black Lives Matter, I think they painted this massive mural on one of the walls in EastEnders, and they like were so proud that they had this black mural on the wall, this black painting. And I was like, why is that being celebrated? Like, why can't things like that just become norm and not be celebrated? So I think TV has a massive part to play in it, where things that they think are good, that they're ticking a box, need to not be a tick box exercise, need to just become the norm, and then they need to not be celebrated. I think the problem is that people see gay and black as a thing that is like token, and it's tokenism, and it kind of feels like they're just doing it to tick a box or to get celebrated for, and then they get so happy that they've done it, and then it's a big deal, and actually it should just be the norm. And like, yeah, I'm repeating myself, but I feel like TV is definitely, it annoys me when I see things on TV that I'm like, why is that a thing? Like, why is that a big deal? Like, that should just be the norm. Like Love Island is my pet peeve. Like, they do Love Island and it's all fucking ridiculously plastic people like getting with each other who've had plastic surgery, who are not real. They are not a reflection on society, on normal everyday society. Why not put in a black fat person, a white, an Asian, a gay, a lesbian, a transgender, mix it all up and make a show that's actually based on real life experiences? I don't want to see plastic people have sex. I just don't. I want to listen to real conversations. And that is what I mean by TV is fucked and it needs to change. I'm going to stop talking.
So, off of the back of Love Island, obviously that's to do with dating, have you experienced, or how have you experienced dating, or even have you been able to experience dating because of the fact that you're black and queer? Like, for me, I get fetishized a ridiculous amount. And I guess at the beginning, that kind of stemmed from two things. One, being surrounded by a lot of white people. So I kind of just allowed it to happen. I almost was like, oh, okay, they're accepting me. I don't care if they're just using me for the fact that I'm black. Like, okay, whatever, that's fine. And then also, kind of goes back to the community and like growing up and family. It's like the only people when I was growing up who told me that I was wrong, that I was an abomination, that I should die, that I should be killed, were black men. So why would I then go look for love from black men when that's all that they've ever told me? Do you know what I mean? So does anybody have anything to speak about that in terms of dating, finding dating? Anybody?
I think when it comes to dating, and I think this is the experience of most black queer women, is that you're often fetishized for the black thing separately to how you're fetishized for the queer thing. So for me, the amount of time, so I went to university in Liverpool, which is a very white city, and the amount of times that I heard the pickup line from men, you know, oh, I've never been with a black girl, or, you know, oh, you're so exotic, you're an African. So then there's that. But then there's when they find out that I'm bisexual, it's the, oh, have you ever been with a girl? Shall we have a threesome? So it's like you're fetishized on every aspect of your being. And there's no way of kind of, like you say, Melly, like you kind of just accept it because you're like, okay, well, at least they're not disgusted by it. At least you kind of are like, well, at least they like me, which is very messed up because like that's obviously there's a lot to unpack there. But there's like, I feel like it's stages of learning to be like, and I cannot date now as a Black bisexual women without thinking, am I being, for every single time I start speaking to someone, I'm like, am I just a fetish? Is this, and also I have to kind of differentiate between, are you fetishizing my Blackness, or are you fetishizing my bisexuality? Do you just want a threesome with a girl, or do you just want, you know, this Black woman on your arm that you've never been? And it's the exact same with, it's unfortunate that you can't escape it when you start dating within the Black community, like Black males. If I date Black males, then okay, I know you're not, maybe not fetishizing the Black thing, but are you fetishizing my sexuality? It's just like constant thinking about how, like, you can't date without constantly being aware of the fact that you are a fetish in so many different ways, and it's tough. It's a headache.
Take a sip.
Rico, you say you actually have a girlfriend. How was that experience in terms of getting together, in terms of navigating the relationship? How was that? Is Rico there? Rico? Okay, so we don't have Rico currently. We'll
I have some stuff to say.
So whilst we are trying to figure out what's happened with Rico, why doesn't everybody just have like a mini introduction in terms of saying like where you are in the queer spectrum and your pronouns and how they relate? So if you start with Corey. Corey, should we start with you?
Sure. I'm Corey. I'm living in Coventry, but I'm originally from Bermuda. I identify as pansexual, and I am a her/she. And yeah, my queer journey has been pretty low key, but recently I've been trying to like not promote it, but be more of an advocate for queerness and Blackness, especially in my career scope, because it's very poorly represented and it upsets me.
Ola?
Hi, I'm on a G Day. I am he, him. I am gay, and my queer experience. I'm a little bit older than the rest of this group, so I've been through it. Yeah, I've been through it. It's been. Do you know what? I've been really lucky. Like, with, like I said, with my family and my friends. I guess the thing that I found difficult is actually the dating spectrum. Like as I said, it's so much fetishizing, and there's so much racism, and there's just so much blatant rudeness that I struggle. It does get me down. But I must say that I've spoken to a fair few other queer people that are Black, and some of them like it. And I feel like that's a problem. Like the fact that you might be Black and someone goes, oh, I really like BBC. And it's like, and you go, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, do you want to come over? That's not okay. Like, you cannot be Black and let someone fetishize over you because you just want to get laid. Like, and I've spoken to so many people about it, and they're like, well, if I'm going to get laid, and I'm going to get laid, it doesn't matter. I'm like, it does matter, because you're making the rest of us look like shit. And you're going to make the rest of us be treated like shit and be treated like pieces of meat and be fetishized over. And yeah, it's just, yeah, I feel like the education, again, needs to come from us as well. Like, we need to educate other Black people to understand why it's not okay and why we should all stand up for ourselves. And if someone says something like that to us on a dating app or on a date, then you give them their rights. Like, I literally read people their rights on dating apps. I'm like, sorry, do you want me to take you back to the history? Let me explain to you why. And I get blocked. I mean, I always get blocked, but I will go in because I can't sit around and let people continuously go around. And sometimes I've said it to a couple of guys where they're like, do you know what? I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't know. I like Black guys, and I've always said I like Black guys. I'm like, yeah, but why do you like Black guys? Like, what is it about Black people that you like? And like, they haven't got an answer to it. And it's just like, well, then all you're doing right now is fetishizing. And like, but do you date Black guys? I'm like, yeah, I date anyone. Like, I'm not fussy. I don't date people because of the color of their skin, or I date people because of the content of their character, like because of what's in here, not just about the color of their skin. And I think like I said, I think there's just so much more education that needs to be done. I feel like a lot of these dating apps need to put, like, I don't know, like a dictionary or a Bible that people can read before they actually sign up. so they can understand the language, the lingo, the do's, the don'ts, or a video that they can watch. Actually, do you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reach out to some dating apps and create some content for them, because fuck, there's something needs to change.
Honestly, I feel that I'm here for that. Abner, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Abna. My pronouns are they, she, and I'm in London right now, at home. My queer journey kind of started off quite rocky. I guess I was very religious at the time, like my family were very religious. And so it took me a while to come to terms with everything and unlearn all the homophobia. I think right now I'm comfortable in my sexuality, but I'm now exploring what gender means to me and expressing gender in a different way and being more fluid in how I present. So yeah, that's the journey I'm on right now. And in terms of fetishization, I was thinking about this a lot. And I think it's something I've been coming to terms with in terms of like how I'm now expressing my gender and how I feel about my body and everything. Because unfortunately, I think growing up, it was a bit of a tricky time in school. And so unfortunately, bullying was a thing for me. And so it was really interesting because when I was in sixth form, and obviously I was always told growing up that I gave off very feminine energy and I was very curvy and all of this. And so when I got to sixth form and I started wearing more form-fitting clothes or clothes that showed off my figure more, everyone started to notice me. And it was a very, I think as someone who's questioning gender now, it was quite a triggering experience because one, you haven't been seen before, and then suddenly, because you're Black as well, and like Black females and the female energy is very like sexualized. So I just became sexualized for everything that I was rather than for who I was, the content of my character and everything like that. And so I think that was definitely my experience. Like people would start saying to me, oh, you know, you're gonna just, all the boys are just gonna go mad. Oh, wow, Abner, oh my God, you're bum. Oh my God. And I was like, can I just be like, hold on a second. Let me decide. Let me decide how I feel about myself. Let me decide what my body means to me. And there was no space for that. And like, I'm now on that journey of what does my body mean to me? How do I experience my body? What does it mean to feel dysphoria? What does it mean to be in this, you know, curvy female presenting body? But it was definitely, I think that was definitely the experience. And it wasn't just like from necessarily men, I went to an all girls school. And so, you know, sexuality was being explored there, but it was just like everyone in itself were like very concerned with like figures, and it was a lot. So I think that's the journey I'm on now, figuring out, okay, you know, feminine energy, but what does this body mean to me, and how can it be a home for me, and how can sometimes admitting that sometimes it doesn't always feel like home to me. So that's the journey I'm on. And also, yeah, sexuality wise, I identify as pansexual. So yeah, that's me.
Rico, do you want to give your little introduction?
You asked me a question about being sexualized for being Black. I wouldn't necessarily say I have been personally. I think those sort of Black male sexuality tends to be, especially for my male presenting or guys, tends to be about like genitals, and I don't have a penis, so I don't really like get that from. That's okay, cool. I think I do actually fancy. To my girlfriend, I do actually fancy Black women more than white women. I think because it kind of feels like home in a way, and we have the same sort of like cultural identity. I think my actual girlfriend right now, even though she's white, she's actually more quote unquote Black than me. Like she says slang, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I feel like it kind of works that way. But I think from dating within the Black community, there's a lot of internalized hatred, a lot of internalized homophobia, and I sometimes can't want to deal with that. So I remember I was dating a Black girl about a year ago, and we left her house and went to kiss her. She was like, oh my God, no, the neighbors. I was like, the neighbors? Like, I'm not used to this. I was like, I just kiss people in public, man. You just need to get used to this. I was like, nah, this is not going to work for me. So yeah, I think there's a lot of internalized homophobia within the Black community. Plus, meeting the parents in the Black community, it's a lot harder. I feel like I'm gonna get a tough time regardless, realistically, because being trans is it's still growing. For what I'm saying, people are just slowly getting their heads around it, and it's okay. Okay, it's a trans person on TV. Okay, that's fine. But do I want my daughter to date a trans guy? It's an uncomfortable discussion, and I feel as if that conversation would be easier in a white family than it would be a Black family, which is a really, really sad way of putting it. But I think there is a little element of truth to it. But yeah. Oh, introduce myself. Okay. My name is Rico Jacob Chase. Don't laugh at me. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a Black trans guy. I'm working on a radio show right now, co-hosting and producing. It's called Against Racism. We've got some speakers like Diane Abbott and Stafford Scott, and Lady Phil's coming as well. So trying to just like put it all together. Wedzera's doing some advertising for us, which is quite cool. I'm a director at Transaction UK. So we're like reviewing policy for non-binary law right now. Medical, we're giving like little leaflets for trans people when they go to the GPs to kind of make those discussions easier. And I'm kind of working on the Law Commission's doing a review for hate crime. So we're kind of like trying to get some of the trans issues into that. So yeah, I'm pretty darn queer, yeah, as it goes. But yeah.
Can I just jump in on the back of what Abena was saying about being sexualized or fetishized as a Black woman? It doesn't always happen in relationships. If anything, it happened more just in every sort of social interaction, for me at least, than it did in relationships. I'm very particular about who I connect with on a romantic level, but it was like, it still happens now, to be honest, but especially with girls, it's more times with girls than it is with guys, because I'll cuss a guy out, like, I'm not afraid, but a girl, she thinks, you're a girl, we're all friends here, oh my God, your ass, everyone wants to touch my ass, everyone wants to, be like, oh my God, I want your body, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Don't, like, stop. It's so aggravating, but at the same time, you're kind of just like, okay, I appreciate my body, and I think maybe I should take it as a compliment, and when you're trying to navigate, like, okay, am I letting too much come across, or am I being too harsh, or whatever? And yeah, 100%, because when you were saying, like, when my body first started developing, and I was like getting shape, and I was getting attention from people that I was never getting attention from before, and then people were my friends all of a sudden, and I was like, we've never spoken, and now you really care about me. And I was just like, I remember I have a very vivid scarring memory. We had swim meets back in Bermuda, and no one ever wants to swim because physical activity, we're all kids, but the teachers always signed you up for something anyways. So this was probably right after I hit puberty and curves showed up. And I still had, the curveless bathing suit. So the, 11-year-old body in that bathing suit was one thing, but the 12-year-old after puberty in that bathing suit was a completely different It was the worst day of my life. And I had to walk from one end of the pool all the way around like a procession. And no one was hiding that people were looking, guys were gazing, girls were like, oh my God, some girl I never spoke to comes up to me, she's like, your ass looks amazing. I'm like, I don't know you, and I feel like a piece of meat right now. It was the worst day of my life. So yeah, I 100% understand what you're saying about, I'm with you on that struggle. And yeah, unfortunately, I feel like it has made me a little bit closed off, which is kind of sad to say, but it kind of makes me like not trust people. I don't want to show, I dress slightly differently. I tend to wear baggier clothes because I don't want people to see my curves. I kind of see it more as like, if you are a good enough person and you've passed all the checks, then you get to see what I look like. But other than that, unless I post a bikini pic on Instagram, but that's a whole different conversation. Other than that, yeah, you're not allowed to see, you're not privy to that information.
Kind of coming off of, oops, sorry, no, go on.
No, just on the back of that, like, I literally, like, now where I'm being a bit more fluid with like gender expression and everything, when there are days where I want to be a bit more feminine or wear something a bit more body grabbing, I think that adds to it. I think that adds to like navigating it and the discomfort that comes to it. It's just how I'll be received. And it's that whole thing of like, there's not one way to be gender fluid, there's not one way to be non-binary, but the way you present still unfortunately comes into it. And so there's that discomfort that's there, where it's like there's days where want to be a bit more feminine, but I'm just like, I just don't know if I want to wear this certain thing because I want to not seem a certain way, but feel comfortable, if that makes sense. So I completely hear you, and it just feels very good to feel seen in that way. It goes, oh my goodness.
I want to add on to that, back off of what you're backing off of. Yeah. Do you ever feel guilty for wanting to own your feminine body? It is the worst, because when you go through the experience of almost feeling like fetishized and like a piece of meat, you tend to feel ashamed, especially in the Black community, where you're raised to believe that you as a female is a weapon. Don't wear a short skirt. Don't wear a low cut top. If you wear that, boys are gonna say something, and it's almost your fault if they have their creepy sexualization on you. So then if you want to actually own the figure that you were born with, then it's like, what are you doing? Why dare you wear clothes that would show off your actual body type? And then I feel like, oh my goodness, like I can't wear anything. But at the same time, like sometimes it's like a whole, like sometimes it takes me so long to get dressed in the morning because I'm like, I want to put this on and I feel cute in it, but I know if I walk outside, someone's going to look at me. And if they look at me, the first thought I'm going to be like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? But then I have to rethink myself, like, it doesn't matter what they think, it's about what you want to do and how you feel. And then it's a whole back and forth. Like it takes me so long to make a lot of decisions where it comes to my body and expressing myself. I mean, it used to. I'm making the transition now where I'm trying to push myself to be like, don't worry about what anybody else is thinking, do what you want. But there's so much guilt involved in being a Black woman, especially being a queer Black woman. I think guilty for being Black, you're loud or you're being misunderstood. You're guilty for being a woman because women are just, thanks Eve, basically, because women is, you can't be a woman. Basically everything you do is wrong. And then you're queer as well. So now you're doing something that's abnormal and you're not following the status quo. You're not doing what everyone's telling you to do. Yeah. And I'm tired.
Yeah, I think I've like, it's on my mind a lot because again, I'm on this journey, and I think I relate, and it's a slightly different journey in a way for me as well, because again, questioning gender. And so there are days where, again, it feels like home here. There are days where it doesn't. And there is that guilt because, again, I think I have a lot of a trauma with my body, and I had a really difficult relationship with it. And so I'm only now coming to terms with what all of that meant and all of that struggle meant throughout my life. And so on the days where I do appreciate it for its curves, it feels like a betrayal, because I'm like, oh no, you need to, I don't know, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's just a very confusing journey of like, again, there are days where I genuinely just kind of want to look like a boy, and I take great joy when someone's like, oh, you look like a boy, you look like a guy, and I'm like, oh my God, that's great. And then there are days where I kind of appreciate my body for what it is and how curvy it is and everything. It's just a roller coaster. That's the only way I can describe it, honestly. But yeah.
So, like, off of the back of that, in terms of like owning what you wear and stuff, like when I was young, I was very effeminate, very camp, very like obviously queer, and then I kind of got that bullied out of me as I got into high school. Like, it was kind of like, he's gay, and so then I like just basically changed my appearance completely. And then now, and like that broke me, that like completely broke me, like mentally. I was just like, what the fuck, like this isn't how I want to be, but like I can't be how I really want to be, because how am I supposed to get through life? And so I just wanted to say, like, and then now, sorry, sidetracking, so then now I'm like, one day I'll be like quite masculine and like masculine presenting, and then the other day I'll throw on my 6-inch thigh-high boots and I will be strutting and twerking and dropping into splits and doing all sorts, like, do you know what I mean? And so, and that's that I had to go to a very dark place mentally to be able to then get to the place now. So I just wondered how, in terms of how's your mental health been affected? Has it been affected in terms like with having to own who you are, being Black and being queer?
This is a very big topic for me. I've just been thinking a lot about, like, especially because of today. And I haven't really spoken about it before, actually. And I'm really glad it's come out, actually. But I have OCD. And I also struggled with like an eating disorder, like during uni. And it was really interesting because with OCD, it makes you question everything. It either makes you feel like you're an awful person, or it just makes you want to be so sure to the point that it's debilitating. And I've gone through several stages of my OCD where it's affected me in so many different ways of life, and it's made me feel like I'm a monster in so many different ways and affected me in so many different ways. But the time where it got so bad that I had to go to therapy was when it was like fears around sexuality. And it was really interesting because the thing was that it was actually a truth for me as well. That there was a truth. There was a truth to it, basically. I was questioning sexuality, and I am pansexual. And it's interesting because I think one of the reasons why I found it really hard to start talking about OCD and how, you know, OCD can make you question things, and it's about, have you got the right answer? I don't know how to describe it properly. Give me a moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can take a minute if you want.
Yeah,
I was gonna while you think, I was just gonna say, like, with the mental health stuff, for me it's always the queer thing doesn't affect my mental health anymore. It's the Black thing that's really gotten to me this year. So like when I was younger, I was raised very religious, and that really messed with my mental health, because I remember sitting in church every Sunday, and sometimes like gay people being abomination would come up in church, and I'd be sat there, and at the time I'd like fancy a girl, and I remember that really created like an internal battle that, like, I'd say, like, when I was younger, my mental health around being queer was horrendous because I was raised in religion, and also because at the time, like, we all have African parents, like Black parents, who would, you know, see two men kissing on TV and, you know, start saying horrible things about it. And like, so I would see that as a reflection on how they'd react to me, and I would like internalize that. So before I went to uni, the mental health thing with being queer was really bad, but then I took uni as a time to kind of reinvent myself, and I just kind of said, I'm going to let everyone know that I am bi/pansexual, and I don't care. Like, my sexuality, I literally don't care anymore about who knows it, what they think about it. I couldn't care less. But I found that the Black thing has taken that place in a more kind of, in a wider context of, the Black thing really plays with my mental health. For example, I'm in Liverpool at the moment, and I was walking to uni yesterday, and there have just been a string of racial attacks in Liverpool, and I was walking home, and there was a group of white people walking behind me, and I had a panic attack because I was like, I could be the next racial attack. And that really, really, like, I started power walking. I got really scared. So I feel like the mental health thing has flipped from being my sexuality, where I'm fine with my sexuality, and also you can't always tell my sexuality, but the Black thing I can't escape. You can see that I'm Black, and that's really starting to like kind of plague me a little bit.
Yeah, I think when it comes to mental health, I think I'm very similar to you, because I think when I was younger, it played such a huge part on my everyday thought. It was in my head because I was in the closet for so long. I didn't come out till really late, until after uni. So it played in my head for so long, and it really, like, it made me angry. I was a very angry person. So if someone was to call me gay and when I hadn't come out, I would get angry and I'd get violent. And my friends would all be like sticking up for me, going, he's not gay, and that was me harboring this thing in my heart and on my chest, and it was coming out in the wrong ways. Anyway, when I came out, it started to feel a bit more natural, and it didn't really sit in my head as much. And I think similar to you, because the last couple of years, I think because of work and what I do, I think the Black thing plays more of a thing for me, because the Black thing is more identifiable. So I can't walk into anywhere without being recognised as being Black. And actually that for me at the moment is what plays a massive part in my head. And I work in recruitment, so I'm a recruitment manager. And so I sit in a lot of senior meetings with senior leadership teams, and you talk about strategies and have to pitch and talk about, you know, recruitment strategies and recruitment plans. And most of the time I'll be the only, all the time, I don't think I've ever been in a senior meeting with any other black person. So I'm always the only black person. So that always plays a part in my mind. And if they're having a conversation and I raise my voice, they'll be like, Junior, why are you getting so aggressive? And it's like, well, I'm not getting aggressive. It's just, I'm just trying to get my point across. And it's like, there's certain things and microaggressions that happen in the office that I go home away and sit and think about that really, really have a negative effect on my mental health. And I think that for me plays more of a role than the queer thing. I think now I can deal with any homophobia that gets thrown my way, but the black thing, I just can't, I somehow seem to not be able to deal with it the same way that I dealt with the queer thing. And I think it's because, again, it comes back to what's happened this year. When you hear about all these stories, it just really hits hard. And you know, it's like when you think of the future, you think, well, how long are we going to have to continue this struggle? How long do we have to continue to fight for a place at the table? How long do I have to continue to have to push harder than everyone else? Like, I have to prove myself in the work environment. I'm always proving myself. It was even like the other day, I've actually recently been made redundant, but the other day I was applying for a job, and my old boss said to me, she said, why do you always have to oversell yourself? And I said to her, because I have worked for the last, 17 years, and I've had to work hard, extra hard than anyone else. I've had to always push myself harder than everyone else, because everyone I work with is white. And everything for them just happens. It happens like that. For me, I have to apply to 100 jobs before I get one interview, because my name is Olajide Alabi. Whereas Stephanie or Karen or Christopher, they've applied to like 2 or 3 jobs and they'll have 3 interviews. Like, it's just, I've always had to fight. So when I do a CV, or when I do a cover letter, I'm still fighting. I'm still pushing myself, and it's a mentality that I need to switch in my head, because I'm established. Like, I'm 32 years old. I'm established. I've worked really fucking hard to get to where I am, and I need to own that, and I need to have the confidence to realize that I am amazing. And you don't have to like oversell yourself, because actually you only want to work for someone that sees you for you, not sees you for like having to be like this extra person, or this extra layer, or this overly like enthusiastic person. So yeah, I think there's a lot I need to work on myself, but the black thing, I think, just plays such a huge part that I just don't see how it's going to get better in the future. And that's why it takes longer, I think, to process in one's mind.
I find that quite interesting, because in the industry that I'm in, so I'm a dancer, and like in the performing arts world, it's, you have literally because I'm black, but it's not done because, oh, we don't want black people. It's literally because the story that we're trying to tell, the image that we're trying to show, black people don't fit that. And then on the flip side of that, it's like, we need you because you're black. Like, we want you because you're black. And I just find it quite interesting that, like, so I've never really had to kind of had that battle, because I knew from the get-go that, like, that's just how it was gonna be. And it's just very interesting for me to hear that you guys have actually experienced that. Corey, did you have anything to say in terms of the mental health and how it's affected you?
Yeah, I feel like, I think I'm along the same lines as what everybody else has said. But I don't think my sexuality has really affected my mental health that much. But if I really go down and dig out the real reasons behind my mental health issues, it's more because I have a personal expectation that I need to be perfect all the time, and I need to like do what everybody expects of me. So that has a lot of other elements built into it, and I guess my sexuality is one of those things. But yeah, my main issues was just like this feeling of I'm not doing what everyone's expecting. Have to always. That comes mostly from being Black. And yeah, in workplace environments, just always feeling like I have to do 110%, because if I don't, I'm just gonna get passed off. Yeah, so basically what everybody else is saying. But yeah, I think I'm lucky. I don't think I've really had any serious like mental health issues, knock on wood, because you never know what the future has to hold. But yeah, my mental health really hasn't been affected because of my sexuality, but I do feel like I'm very early in my sexuality journey, so we'll see what happens.
You know what's really interesting? Sorry. I was just going to say this comment that's just come in from Taj about the conversation around about race over sexuality being easier. I think she's so right. Like having a conversation about your sexuality is easier than having a conversation about race. When you start talking about race and your racial struggles, people clam up immediately because for them it's like, I don't want to talk about race. I don't want to talk about slavery. I don't want to talk about history. No. But talk about sexuality and they're like, oh yeah, I went to Pride, yeah, I've got a gay friend, yeah, I love going down to like, Soho. Love it. But talk about I'm from Nigeria and this is what I'm going through and this is the stuff that I struggle with. They just come up. Why is that? Like, and how do we change that? How do we change that so that people feel more comfortable talking about race? Because for me, I don't want to talk about, like, being gay is amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, that is part of my story, but it isn't my full story. Like, my full story actually starts with being black, and being a man, and then it's being gay. Like that our color and our race is the first topic of conversation. How do we make it easier for people to talk about race?
I think. Sorry, go on, Kate. Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say off the back of what Corey was saying to the two female presenting people on the panel. Have you guys found, so a big thing that I really struggled with when I started the working world was as a Black woman dressing for work, because a lot of the time I'd be asked if I was trying to impress someone just because, so I've naturally got like, a curvier shape and, and a lot of the time I'd have to spend like the whole morning saying, will someone kind of say something because my bum looks big in this, and like that really started to get to me. And also like within my Blackness, I wear a lot of headscarves, and every time I was in a professional setting, it took me a long time to have to say, is a headscarf going to be acceptable in this? Like, is that professional? So have you guys found that your female form as a Black woman has kind of impacted the way that you, and this is going back to the mental health thing, it's that someone said to me the other day, as a Black person, you can't just be, you're always questioning every single thing. Like Ola was saying earlier about, if you're too loud, you don't want to be the loud Black person. If you get an attitude, you don't want to be the Black person with an attitude. If you are twerking, you don't want to be the Black girl who, like, you always, as a Black person, are, any decision you make, it's like 10 alarm bells go off at like the possibilities of how you could be perceived. So I wanted to know from the two female presenting people, like, is the dressing and the just simple things about just wearing certain things, has that played a role in kind of affecting the way that you do certain things?
Do you want to go?
You can go first, Savannah.
Yeah. Yes, basically. I think it started from school. So the experience I had from school and people kind of reacting to my body in a certain way has just like stayed with me throughout. And there has been certain times where I'll wear something to work that's a bit more form-fitting, and I feel self-conscious this whole time, or people might make a comment and stuff like that. And I remember when I was working as a TA, I had my natural hair out before I cut my hair. I had my natural hair out, and it was getting long to plait it every night. And so I remember having a headscarf on, and I took it for I wanted to just wear it for the whole week. But about 2 days in, I was just kind of like, I feel like this is too much now. I think that this doesn't look professional. I had to ask my mom and my sister, like, do you think this is too, like, not professional for work? I feel like this isn't right. And so it's constant. It's definitely a constant battle of like, is this okay all the time? Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely goes back to the back and forth that Ben and I were having earlier. Always considering, I literally have to, I don't have to, but I would plan out my outfits the night before and like spend a good amount of time like sitting and thinking about it, trying on stuff and being like, I don't know. And I've had some like really sad experiences, like been in an office and white colleague be like, oh my goodness, how do you get your hair like that? Can I touch it? I'm like, don't touch my hair. I don't want you to touch my hair. And it also came from school. Like I said, I went to a private school, predominantly white. and we had a dress code, and the girls had to wear skirts, and the teacher would come to us after assembly and measure the length of the bottom of our hem to our knees. And if it was too long, you would get an email sent home. And of course, that is inherently racist because Black women's shapes are always more curvy. Because I have a big butt, the physics, just the way the skirt is gonna lay on my body means that it's gonna be a little bit higher. That doesn't mean I'm trying to impress the boys. I don't care about what they're doing. I'm trying to get an education. And it was so bad. They would line us up at the back of the class and they would just go and measure everyone. And of course, all the white girls get to go. No offense to white women, everyone is beautiful, but your curves are not at the same dimensions that mine are. So the white girls are wearing these shorter skirts, but because visually it doesn't look as appealing, they get to go. Black girls, on the other hand, oh no, sorry, that's too short. I had a friend who was wearing shorts and got told it was too short. What can she do? She's wearing shorts. They're literally bought out of length and they fit her the way they fit her. It's crazy, but stuff we have to deal with. We don't have to, but it's not.
Rico?
So I used to female present. I only started male presenting at the age of 25. So this whole like male presentation, I came out as bi and I came out as gay, and I just went through the spectrum in about 3 years. But female presentation, you have to about it. You get all this, I feel like when I was in meetings, people used to question me a lot. Even though I knew I was right. As a guy, people don't really question you as much. It's actually quite refreshing. I can roll out of bed and wear the same shirt I wore yesterday and no one will say anything to me. Like Instagram, you don't have to like have multiple outfits. People constantly judge women and constantly objectify you, and it is significantly more exhausting. I feel like men have a lot more time to actually think about life. I think women are just like constantly thinking about, almost forced to think about aesthetically pleasing things like clothes and like hair and etc. Guys, we don't have as much pressure. As long as we get our hair cut like once every 3 weeks, we're sorted, you know, and it's a lot easier. And like I can stroll from a park in boots and a shirt and go straight to a pub. As a girl, you have to sort of go home, you have to wear heels, you have to do makeup. There's a lot of tottering around. I mean, I did enjoy the tottering, but it's just not particularly practical. It's like, it's very, very hard. You have multiple outfits for different scenes, and there's a lot of pressure.
I just kind of wanted to go a bit back to the hair thing that Abner was talking about. So like in school, I had, for like the whole time I was in high school, had this battle with my teachers and my hair, because I would grow it really long and then I'd get it, dye it different colours, and it was always extreme. No matter what I did with my hair, I'd plait it, it'd be braids, cornrows, just straight going back, and still somehow that was an issue. And it was never, the excuse that they always brought was, oh, it's going to distract everybody from the class. Well, no, it's not. Okay, so maybe I'll walk in the first 5-10 minutes, everyone's going to be like, oh, you got a new hairdo, blah, 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 blah. Then after that, they've seen it, they're bored. So like, why am I having to then, like, I got I got excluded from school. I got my hair cut with a pattern in, and I had to go home and learn from home until the pattern grew out. Like, that's how ridiculous my school was. And I'm like, I just couldn't understand it because it was unprofessional. But yet, for Black culture, if I go to the barbers and get a shape up and get my hair done, that's me making an effort. That's the exact opposite of what you're saying. And like, for example, like women who wear headscarves, the headscarves, they're nice. It's a form of dress. It's not, obviously you can use it to cover up your hair when you haven't been able to do it, but on the basic level, it's a form of dress. So why am I not allowed to wear my headscarf? Why am I not allowed to come with my hair cut nicely? Like, that for me was something that is just always bugged me. And I just wondered, has anybody else had any experience with that or felt the same way? Any of the panelists?
I went to a predominantly white school in Watford, and I think there's probably like a handful of Black boys or Black people in school, and I used to like getting like zigzags in my hair. I think I did go for a stage of getting like a Nike tick in the back of my head, and I used to get told off at school for it. But then a white boy could come into school with like blue hair or like a mohawk or like, do you know what I mean? And it was like, it was celebrated. but I watched the show that Abena was in last night, and it was all about hair, and you should watch it. It's on Channel 4, and the things that they said about the way that society sees Black people's hair, it all goes back to history. It's all within the history, and I think if you research into the history of hair and Black people's hair, you get a better understanding of it. But I think it's up to us now to change that. Like, I used to let people touch my hair. Like, if someone said, "Can I touch your hair?" I think I used to be like, "Yeah, cool, yeah, feel my hair," until I realised that that was a problem. And so since I've realised that it's a problem, people go, "Can I touch your hair?" And I go, "Am I an animal in the zoo? Does this look like London Zoo to you? Does it? No. So you can't touch my hair." So I think you have to start correcting people so that people can change and learn. Like, it's all about education. Like, it really is. And we've all got to get better ourselves so that the world can be a better place.
And I think off the back of what you're saying about education, Ola, I think when it's us, so with the hair thing, so I was working in a school the last year, and one of the kids that I mentored, he was a Black boy, and we would often go to battles over things that would be done to him because of his race and blah, blah, with the rest of the school. But one thing in particular that I started to notice was that every time he would do like a Black hairstyle, he'd get told by staff that he looked scruffy. So what I would do to combat that, to actively combat that, I would always in front of staff tell him that his hair looks really nice today. Like if he came in with his little twists or he came in with his pop outs, I'd just be like, "Hey, your hair's looking nice today." And that's a way of combating. He's hearing so much negative stuff about his self-image. So I would combat, and I'd make a point every time someone told him he didn't look nice to tell him that, "Actually, no, you look great today." And I think it's little things like that. It's just, we need to start kind of combating the negative image that's portrayed of the things that we do by actively telling, especially young people, by telling them, "No, you look great." It doesn't matter if they say you don't, like, because it does go back to that. I remember seeing a side-by-side picture of like Boris Johnson and a Black guy with like a nice fade, and they were talking about how, Boris Johnson's hair is professional, but the Black guy with the fade is unprofessional and messy. And it's so deeply ingrained that it's going to take a long time to get over, but I think we can actively combat it by the words. And like, I believe in like the power of words, and especially when it comes to young Black people, just ensuring that you continue to tell them. And it's the same with the queer thing, telling young Black queer kids that it's okay to be you, you're great. Like, just positive language and positive reinforcement, I think, is one massive thing that we as individuals can do for younger Black people. Just, it might not feel like much, but it could be something in 10 years that they look back on and they're like, "I remember when that person told me that it could be a saving thing." So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Off the back of that as well, like when I was working as a TA recently, I could feel it, but a lot of the Black girls in my class would come to me and they'd ask me about what I thought about their hair, because like sometimes I'd just pick it up. Like one of the girls had like her hair threaded, and she'd always come to me every single day if she changed her hair. And I think it's a thing where sometimes when you don't see yourself, or like I remember one time when I was like leading the class, one of the kids would keep complaining about one of the girls and how her hair was blocking the screen. I was like, "It's fine, you can just move slightly to the side." I don't think it was that much of a problem. So it was just like things like that, like microaggressions here and there, where the kids kind of, I guess, are just used to saying, "Oh yeah, like this person's blocking the board," and all of that. And I think the kids just didn't really have that person to look to. So it was like a constant thing where they just come to me and be like, "Oh, my hair, what do you think of it, miss?" So I think it's a really important thing to ingrain that from a young age. So yeah.
Rico, did you want to speak?
Yeah, so I went to private school as well, majority white, and there was like a dress code where you had to like neat and tidy. So my parents used to wash my hair, blow dry it, and straighten it and pull back into like a plait. And my family didn't actually realize my hair was curly until I let it grow out at the age of like 24. So we didn't actually know that I had curls. My family thought my hair was straight. It's not straight. I've got a massive effort. It's just stuff like that. It's just like you're kind of like just forced to just live in a very, very white environment, and then you kind of just embrace your own blackness. I was just like, why the hell am I straightening my hair? Why am I trying to look Caucasian when Caucasian people are trying to look like me? It doesn't make any sense. Just be yourself.
So we've got about 15 minutes left. So just we've got a couple of questions from the audience. So we're just going to go through them. So we have where is it gone? So there was a question in reference to the media. Do you think that Black queerness as a whole is not really broadly represented enough into, because it's often just the sassy Black male who we see, and that's like a tokenism. So does anybody have anything to say about that? Do you think that it is well represented, not well represented? What would you like to see more of?
I think it's horribly represented, like so sad. It's sad. There's this podcast called Tutus. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's two gay Black women, and they talk about being gay and Black, and it's amazing. You should listen to it. And they have an episode where they discuss the lack of visibility for people, and they also comment on colorism as well, which is a whole different conversation as well. But it seems like in media, before it was there's no Black people, or there's one channel dedicated to Black people, and that's the only channel that you can watch. Now, okay, Black Lives Matter is coming up. Everything's being more visual. We have social media, everything's live. So people are being forced to like call out what they see as injustice. So now we have these people, and it's not so much, I can see the benefit in it, but I can also see, for me at least, where it's kind of annoying. It's like, all right, well, instead of this family unit being white, we'll make the mom Black, but she's mixed, and that'll be fine. And then, you know, or the kid is mixed, and it's like, just a little drop of melanin will be enough, and that will cover everything. And obviously I care for every spectrum of Blackness that there is, but as a dark-skinned woman, I do not see enough of people that look like me in the media, and it's very upsetting. And yeah, like back to colorism, it's just like if you're light-skinned, you're seen as more, I don't know what the word is, but you're just, I get this energy that it's like so much more exciting to be mixed and light skin, and you know, all these girls with the loose curls and big hair, and it's just like, oh, everyone wants to do that, but I come in with my kinky afro and my dark skin, and everyone's just like, either I get you're very, very beautiful, and it's like a top tier type beauty where it's like only Naomi Campbell level type beautiful, and it's kind of like almost too good, so no one actually wants to approach it, or it's just like, we don't really care and we're not really looking at you. And it's sad. I think it needs to be normalized. Every spectrum, the whole, you know, from white to Black to dark skin to everything needs to be represented equally. But yeah, to answer the question, no, I don't think it's being represented enough at all. And especially gay Black women, I honestly can't give you an example of any time I've seen a gay Black woman on TV.
Rico, you're muted.
At Transaction UK, one of the organisations we work closely with is Trans Media Watch, and we actually noticed an increase in hate mail, is it? No, like online cyberbullying when it comes to trans people. And while the general perception and dialogue is so much incorrect, false information flying around in official publications. So you sort of read an article by The Guardian, you think, who the hell researched this? It's some sort of cis white person sort of just spoke to one non-binary person and thought, hey, I can write an article on this community. And it's just damaging. It isn't particularly helpful. But I think, especially for the trans community, we kind of have I do think like stuff such as like Pose and RuPaul's Drag Race is helpful, but it kind of perpetuates the idea that there's a drag king and drag queen and everything's all glossy and glittery. And that's not actually the case for most trans people. I think the life expectancy of a black trans woman is 35 in the US, and we don't have the statistics in the UK. So effectively what we're realizing is if you make it, it's great. You're a celebrity and you're almost like a caricature. You can live in the media world, but you can't get a trans doctor or nurse or even a politician. I mean, we're not in the I guess the white collar respectable settings. We're in the media because we're interesting to look at. And I think that's really important point to make. So average Joe as a trans person is not getting a decent job, probably has health issues and suffering from anxiety and depression. I don't really think that story itself is actually being told, and it's quite concerning. So yeah, not representative.
I also feel like there's a thing on TV where if a black person's on TV, they're put there as a gangster, or they're put there as a criminal, or if there is a gay person, they're put there as a gay person, then they're seen more as a joke, or if there's a lesbian person, it's a token lesbian person who is just sleeping around. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's never a storyline where you're seeing people being portrayed in normal everyday life, but then there isn't a scandal around them, or that they're achieving great things with their lives, and it's just a normal person achieving greatness. It's a queer black person, and that's what I want to see more on TV. I want to see more people that I can relate to as someone who works really hard, who's black and who's queer, and lives a fabulous life, but also quite a normal life. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be someone who's promiscuous and sleeps around, and it's just like from one extreme to the other extreme. It's never just like an in-between bit. And it's like, yes, I get that there's people that live their lives like that, and that's okay. But then there's people in the middle who just don't have anyone to relate to, and have no connection with any of the storylines. But I must say that of recent, as I've been watching more TV because of lockdown, I don't see many black people on TV anymore. I feel like at one point there was like the token black family in every program, or a token black person, whereas now I feel like that's really gone down, and I don't watch many programs, but I don't see many black people on TV, let alone black queer people. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of work to be done. I think the TV networks have lost their way, like massively, and don't know what to do anymore with the storylines and how to bring black people in and black queer people in and create those storylines, mainly because this is going deep, but it's because the top level leadership teams are all white. So how can you write storylines about black queer people if you have no influence whatsoever? And that's the problem with the world that we live in, is that the country is being run by white people. It's not inclusive. There's not a lot of diversity out there, which is what I've been fighting for. See you soon.
So we kind of wanted to end with how do we collectively feel that we can address homophobia and transphobia in the black community. And we also had a question just put through about the music industry and how it's is it showing any improvement towards attitudes in terms of being the homophobia that's rife in the black community. And I kind of want to tie those two together a little bit. If anybody does follow me on Instagram, I am obsessed. Like in my stories, I'm always posting about black queer artists, like whether that's like actual artists or like hip hop artists. Like there's an artist who I can't get enough of at the moment. It's called 7 Deep, and he I don't even actually know what his sexuality is. I just know that he is queer and he's black and he's in hip hop and he's there and he's making music and he's doing videos and he's putting himself out there. So anytime he releases something, I'm just there posting it. And I know that I have a lot of black people who watch my stories. And so that's kind of a way that I'm trying to do, especially because that's towards the industry that I'm in. I'm kind of trying to push that out there. So then even if they don't see it the first time, they're like, okay, I keep putting it on. And then, okay, he's put that like the third time now, so maybe I might actually take a look. And I think that's kind of a way that I'm trying to help navigate and kind of dissipate the homophobia within the black community. So I just wondered, has anybody else thought about that? How we as the queer community can kind of help to move that along and make it more normal? Because as we've said throughout this panel, we all want it to just be normal, just to be life. So does anybody have anything to say about that?
So I kind of feel like things like this are really helpful. I think like obviously when this is all done, this has been recorded, we should like blast this out as much as we possibly can on social media, because I think what people be able to watch things like this and listen to people talking about their black queer experience is how people are going to learn. And I think right now everyone's spending so much time on social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, etc., that actually if you're able to share videos and share content and educate people through those channels, I think that's really can be a really great way of making change. I personally run a diversity, inclusion and wellbeing consultancy, and it's called CISU, and we are constantly trying to educate. Like, I think it's all, like I keep saying it over and over again today, but I'm always trying to educate people. I think if you get an opportunity to talk to people, you know, leave them with something. Like, I always like to leave people that I meet with like a little thing to digest on, like a little something just to go, you know, here, leave you with that, think about that. I think that's a really good way of making change. I also think that we need to do more within our own culture. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done within us as a Black community. We're a marginalised group as Black people, and as queer people, we're a marginalised group, but yet there seems to be a disconnect between cis and heterosexual Black people connecting with queer Black people. And, you know, through the Black Lives Matter marches, there was some serious homophobia going on, and there was some serious comments being made against Black queer people from other Black people. And I want that to stop. Like, I want Black people to understand that there's no point in fighting with your own people. Like, this just doesn't make any sense. So there's some work that needs to be done. I think any opportunity you get, don't shy away from speaking to other Black people that aren't from the queer community about the queer experience, because again, it's just education.
I think off the back of what Ola was saying, I think for me the main thing is visibility. It's just more Black queerness needs to be seen. In order for us to start fighting it, it needs to, because a lot of the time you'll hear like Black people try and defend it as that doesn't exist in our community, that doesn't, like, you're bringing shame. It actually does in large numbers. So I think as Black queer individuals, I know it can be terrifying and I know it's scary and it's a burden that we really, like you said earlier, a cross to bear, and it is really, really scary. But I think as Black queer people, being as visible, as loud and proud as we possibly can within our own community spaces, I think can start to transform the conversation so much and can start to bring visibility to issues that I think a lot of Black people don't want to address and don't want to accept. So for me, a massive thing is just visibility and being as visible as you can in spaces where you know that this may not be something that's the norm.
One of my good friends, Dr. Ronks, has a saying, you can't be what you can't see. That's exactly it. Like, if you have a dream and it doesn't exist and you can't see it on social media, become that person, and then you'll inspire someone else to be that. So
yeah.
So just one last quick question that we got. It's asking about in the barbershops for the male presenting or the hairdressers for the female presenters. How do you feel in those spaces? How has it affected you? Like, for example, for me, the most masculine place that I can think of as a Black man is the barbershop. Like, anybody who's been into a barbershop knows that the conversations that go on there, just as a queer Black person, they make my skin crawl. And like, even now, even though I know that I'm out and I'm proud and like people know, like I still get my back up and I make my voice a little bit deeper and I kind of dress a certain way when I know I'm going to get my hair cut. And so I just wondered, does anybody else experience that or feel that? Does anybody have anything to say?
I used to go to a barbershop in Watford, and it actually was within a women's salon. So I didn't feel as uncomfortable. But whenever my barber used to talk to me, I used to try and put on like a deep voice and be like, "Yeah, blood, yeah, ski." And then I just, like, my brother once came in and was like, "What are you doing? Why are you talking like that?" And I was like, "Shut up." Anyway, I left that barbershop and went to my old barbershop in Harlesden, and I don't even know why. Like, I now don't care. Like, I'll go into the barbershop wearing like my cycling shorts and like a vest after the gym, and don't even care what I'm wearing. And like, he knows that I'm gay, but we don't talk about it. And everyone knows that I'm gay. Like, my mum goes to the same barbershop as well, so I imagine that they all know, and they've seen me and my mum coming together and stuff. And I just don't care. Like, I used to care, and I used to get worried about putting on the voice or what I'm wearing. And whereas now I'm just like, just cut my hair. If you care so much about cutting my hair because I'm gay, don't take my £15 and I'll take it somewhere else. Like, it's simple as that. Like, for me, it's a transactional thing. And if he talks to me, I'll talk to him as well. Like, I won't put on a voice, and you know, it's fine. Most of the time, if I'm honest, I can't understand what he's saying because he's so deep Caribbean chat and his lingo. I'm like, what? Like, what? Say that again. Like, constantly, all we're doing all the time is just sitting there going, what? Huh? But yeah, otherwise, for me, I've got to a point in life where I can't hide who I am. Like, I am who I am. I'm black. I'm queer. You take me or you leave me. And you know, if you leave me, then fine. Like, it's your loss. If you take me, then you take me for everything that I am.
Can I add to that from a very different perspective? A few years ago, I shaved my head and I was rocking a bald head for a while. So I was going to the barbershop quite regularly. And in a weird way, as a woman, I was almost doing the same thing you were doing, but playing up my femininity because I feel like I didn't want people to think I was gay because I was going into the barbershop to cut my hair. So like, I would intentionally like I would make sure I looked good. I didn't want to walk in looking scruffy because there's a bunch of men there and I don't want them to be like, oh, who's this girl? And then like I would make sure my face was clean and like I would make sure I was like on point if I was gonna go into the barbershop because one, I'm out in public, and two, I'm like, I don't want them to think like, oh, she's trying to look like a guy. Like she clearly doesn't care about what she's presenting. She's trying to get, I don't know. It was a very weird moment where it was weird. I just wanted to throw it out there. I was like very much trying to like promote I'm a girl, I'm just cutting my hair, but I'm a girl. Yeah.
For everyone that's listening, there's actually a barber called Open Barbers, which is in like North London, and they have a sliding scale, so you can pay like up to tenner or like for a haircut. They're like quite open. It's like a charity thing, so you can go there and have like get your haircut by queer people, and they ask you your pronouns when you go. So they have like a little board in the corner. It's just like, and it says your name and your pronouns. Like, it's amazing. I love it there. But I've tried to be a bit brave. I've tried to be brave and go to black barbers because it is quite scary. Because like, I don't know, like I don't mind queer spaces. I can just heterosexual spaces, but heterosexual black spaces, which are all men, do scare me a little bit. So I was just like, okay, man up, we go. I can say that because I'm a trans guy. And just like go. And I went to one which was the Jamaican barbers, and I sat down, and then there was this like old, crusty ass, like, I don't know, you know when you get those sort of like hobo looking guys that hang out in near estates? I went to the barber near Brixton Prison. I shouldn't have done that. That was a stupid thing to do. So he was like this really rough guy, and he was staring at me the entire time I was sitting there. And I was just like, nah, this is not what I thought. So I sat down and they were trimming my hair. I had like the same fade as I have now. And the guy was just like, this is a Jamaican barber. So it's like, you're right. And I was just like, no, like in a very, very strong, thick accent. And I don't really understand Jamaican accents, but it was very, very thick, yeah, right? And I was just like, I don't know something they're saying. And then the other barber was just like, she liked them girls, basically just explaining that I'm gay, like, just leave me alone. And I kind of was like happy that my barber was defending me, but I don't know, it was like weird because I thought that they would get pissed off and be like, I'm not gonna cut your hair, you should leave now. But it was weird. It was okay. But I have a barber which is in Croydon, and Croydon's like, I think it's a Nigerian barber, and yeah, he's really good. He just doesn't really care, to be honest with you. I don't know how he's going to take it when if I start growing a beard. I may potentially change my barber then. I feel like it's just going to be a bit uncomfortable. Just like this girl now has a beard. Like, what is this? Sorry, I didn't swear. I don't know. I haven't started yet, but I am also in a similar boat with the guy at the ticket stand at Purley Station, because I really like him. I hate to think what he's in the field, because we've been mentioned for like 4 years, you know, say hello every single morning. And the guy that gives me my croissants as well in the morning. Yeah. So I think it's just like a trans thing as opposed to like an actual barbershop. But pleasantly surprised so far.
So it is time for us to wrap up. Does anybody have any final things that they want to say? Anybody? No? I mean, we have covered quite a lot.
I would like to say that I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about right now is uncovering our queer history. I don't know that it will make a lot of difference, because I think that our older generation are very ingrained in saying that, you know, there's no such thing as queerness in our culture and there's no such thing as it. But I think one thing that I noticed a lot in the Black Lives Matter movement was, you know, a lot of history being shared, a lot of education being shared. And I think that one thing that just isn't in that vicinity of education is that queer ancestry was alive and present. And I think if that was more popular knowledge and more general knowledge for everyone to access, then hopefully that would start to make a difference, because I think that that's something that really helped root me in my queerness. And I think that if young Black people are taught that from a young age, then they can start to have that dialogue with parents, and hopefully that can start to like bring about a change where we are returning to how we once were. Yeah, I think that's something that I think is really important. It's about informing the future and being present and being out and being queer and being Black and owning all of that, but also looking to our past to inform how it all informs the future, because essentially, you know, being queer and realizing and coming out is stepping into yourself and stepping to who you always were. And I think that the past can be a really strong way to show that this is how we always were and we're stepping into who we are, and this was never any different. And I think I'm really passionate about that. So yeah, I just want that to be out there and just there for everyone to consume, because I think it's important.
Love that.
Yeah.
I would like to say, you have good days and bad days. As long as day is a little bit better than it was yesterday, then you're always going. So don't feel as if you're a bad person if you're not like tackling the entire I think we're getting feedback. Oh yeah, as in like if you're not like tackling the entire world and, you know, walking around with a bayonet, it's actually okay just to do like a self-care day, sort of make sure that you're fine, and that's really, really important, because activism is a marathon and it's not going to happen overnight. I would also say that there's meditation and there's meditation app for POC people. There's trans people on there, people non-binary. It's called Liberate, so that's Liberate app on the App Store. And one of my favorite meditations on there is the ancestor one. So even if you don't necessarily feel as if your immediate family is actually supportive of you, the fact that you know that our ancestors were non-binary and queer, and they say that if you tap I think it's your left shoulder, is when you calling in your paternal ancestors. This is maternal, and in here is non-binary ancestors. So if you're meditating and you want to like call people in to support, it's not just your immediate family that have been misinformed, miseducated. You can call in all those 100 years back since the beginning to come and support you today, because you've got them, you've got their pride and their strength in your veins.
Also, one thing that I also wanted to add, and I think it was like the mental health thing was a bit tricky to like, because I was like, oh, I've never spoken about it before. But I think what I was basically trying to say was that I guess for me, mental health has been a thing that has been present throughout my life for a really long time. But I think that it really hit me like a ton of bricks when it came to like questioning sexuality and when it came to like questioning gender, because again, I think I had just a lot of noise coming from society and then coming from parents, where I was trying to figure out who I was and what my sexuality was. And then there was like my OCD kind of messing with that. Then there was society, and then there was parents. And I guess the whole takeaway with that is that take your time. And I think that when I was like researching and kind of like understanding, you know, what it is to be a bit queer Black person, is that mental health within the LGBT community is much higher, but then mental health within the queer Black community is even higher. And I think it's because of the, you know, extra pressures of racism and being fetishized, and then trying to navigate your own self and trying to be out and open. And so I guess that's what I'd say is everyone's got their own journey. If mental health comes into it, it makes it harder, but take your time. That's what I'm trying to do with myself, is I don't have to have the answers right now. I don't have to have the answers with gender right now. I don't have to have the answers with everything. It's a genuine continuous journey. And I never even thought that I would give myself the permission to question gender, to step into that truth and to own that truth. But I think there's so many different sources of noise coming everywhere, and it's learning to sit with myself and say, you know what, I'm still going to step into this, even though it's really, really difficult and really, really hard to own. And that's all you owe yourself, just sitting down with yourself and saying, you know what, I owe myself this journey of being authentic to myself and understanding what my identity means. And it takes a while. You know, it might change when you're in later life, but just take your time with it. I think coming out to yourself is the most important thing, and being confident in that. And the only way to do that is to genuinely love yourself throughout it and give yourself time. So yeah, basically.
We really do have to wrap up now, I'm afraid, but like we haven't even touched the surface. I think we might have to do another one of these panels because there's so much that we still haven't yet talked about. But I'd just like to thank all the attendees and my fellow panelists and Wedzera. And just, yeah, thank you.
I would like to say thank you guys. I think for me, definitely a part 2 with you guys. I think there is so much to uncover here. So part 2 is in the works. We will be doing this again because I think there's just so much that we didn't uncover, and this was a very healing space. So thank you all for being so vulnerable. Thank you all for sharing your stories. For everyone who listened, thank you very much for continuing to support us. And I'm glad that everyone, the great feedback that I'm seeing in the chat is making me really happy. So thank you very much. We'll be sure to inform you about part 2 because that is definitely something that needs to happen. So everyone have a lovely evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.